Hello, and welcome to our speaker spotlight for Spiritual Awakenings International. And we are live. I am your host, Tamara Calder Richardson of the Seeking Heaven channel, that I call it, but is Seeking Heaven, the Near Death Experience, and Other Phenomena. So, I first of all want to bring in our first guest, who's always with us every month. I'm so excited, and that would be Dr. Von Kaysen. And she is one of the co-founders of Spiritual Awakenings International, as well as the president, which she shares with Robert Bear as the vice president and the co-founder. And she's going to be introducing our guest tonight and being with us. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Tamara.
Great. Well, look, before we get started with our guest, and what we did these things, these speaker spotlights, so people could get a little teaser of who the speaker is going to be this month for Spiritual Awakenings International, which is also abbreviated SAI. So maybe tell people a little bit about SAI, and then we'll go into the introductions of our guest tonight.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So, Spiritual Awakenings International is a global network that I co-founded with Robert Bear, as Tamara said, about 10 months ago. And Spiritual Awakenings International is focused on raising awareness all around the world about the whole spectrum of spiritually transformative experiences. I found in my career that there are many groups that have like a very narrow focus in what they're focusing on. Maybe they're only looking at near-death experiences, or they're only looking at Kundalini awakenings, or they're only looking at mystical experiences, or they're only looking at out-of-body experiences. Whereas I have always found in my 40 years of work in this field that these wide range of spiritually transformative experiences are interconnected or interrelated, that are all part of an expansion of consciousness and a global spiritual awakening that's happening on the planet, and that they need to be looked at together. And so Spiritual Awakenings International was created to look at the whole spectrum of spiritually transformative experiences. So, and what we're doing is we have free online featured speaker events every month, and we post the videos from these featured speaker events on our Spiritual Awakenings International website. And so you're welcome to look at our website and look at our free videos and register for our upcoming events. Our website address is www.spiritualawakeningsinternational.org.
Fantastic. And also, just to FYI, there is a conference coming up in June 12th through 13th. That is free. It is online. And that is sponsored by Spiritual Awakenings International. And I'm one of the speakers. And so is Dr. Von Kaysen. So there's so many. We're both multiple experiencers. So there's so many. And again, such a range of spiritual experiences. So I think now is a really good time, Dr. Kaysen, to introduce our guest tonight.
Yes. Well, I'm very, very excited about our next speaker at one of our Spiritual Awakenings International Presents events. And that event will be, let me check my calendar, Saturday, May the 15th. And our speaker will be Dr. Richard Kelly. Now, we are having a very special event in May. And this is our inaugural First Responders event. And we are doing this because Police Week, Police Memorial Day, Firefighters Memorial Day are all in the month of May. So we thought this would be a good time to have a special event that is recognizing first responders who are also having spiritually transformative experiences. And I know for a fact that it is very difficult for first responders who are having these experiences to find a safe place to talk about these experiences. It's just not part of the culture of being a police officer or a firefighter or a paramedic. So I'm really delighted that the speaker who's going to be speaking at our upcoming event, Dr. Richard Kelly, has done research and has documented, and he'll share more about that, that many first responders are indeed having spiritually transformative experiences, particularly in situations surrounding death when they're in lethal situations. And Richard Kelly he is now a licensed clinical psychologist practicing in Maryland, but earlier on in his career, he himself was a first responder. He was a police officer. He was a Massachusetts State Police Detective Lieutenant for many years. And it was during that time that he first got interested in this area of research. And he has an auspicious career, and he later served with Interpol, with the FBI, with the U.S. Marshal Service. But now he's retired from that first responders work, and he's working as a clinical psychologist. So we are absolutely delighted that he will be presenting on liminal experiences and first responders in our upcoming Spiritual Awakenings International event. So here's Dr. Richard Kelly.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kelly, for being here. I tell you, we were having a little bit too much fun on the pre-show, and wow, I mean, your background. I was looking through your background. I was like, wow, it's a lot to read, because you really do have an experience as far as not only being a policeman, and you were also in state psychological services, and you were also a part of the employee assistance program with the FBI. I mean, it's really impressive. And it looks like you've spent a long time for us understanding, working with, areas where there is danger, there is trauma. And I personally would love to find out more about, I know there was a research study a while back about spiritually transformative experiences and first responders, but more importantly, you probably have learned a lot over your career and seen things. So that's I want to know more about that. I want to hear some of these stories.
Yeah, well, I've gone to a lot of places and done a lot of things, mostly because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I grew up.
I understand.
Yeah, so it's been an interesting career from the beginning to now. Right now, I'm in private practice as a correction. I appreciate the small promotion to psychologist, but the way the licensing people go, it's a licensed clinical professional counselor.
My apologies.
No, it's a long, complicated, and dreary, boring story about the licensing boards and all. So, I've been in private practice now for about 10 years. I'm retired 3 times over. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, or as I refer to it, the People's Republic of Massachusetts, sends me a bank statement with an extra boost in it every month for 22 years of service there.
Wow.
And the federal government gives me a check for 15 years there, and Social Security because I'm old. And,
wow. Well, God bless you for all those years of service.
Yeah. Your tax dollars at work. I want you to feel better about paying your taxes.
I do. Absolutely. Well, so I wanted to ask you, when you first started, you got what was your entry level into this whole field, far as, law enforcement? Was that the first that you?
Yeah, it was. I initially started in my very early years. I played in a rock band and fixed cars, and went to college part-time. And then I decided, I took the state police exam without half a thought as to whether I wanted to do it or not. It was just something I did. And I managed to get on and stayed there for 22 years. So, but I was still going to college part-time, finishing up my bachelor's degree. Took me 4 colleges in 8 years, but they had Massachusetts had a wonderful program, which is somewhat timely now, because in the late 60s, I came on to the state police in 72. And the late 60s, after all the riots in the country, one of the things that was of major concern was the education level of the police. And Massachusetts, being on the forefront of those kinds of things, decided it would be good to create a program to pay police officers extra for college degrees earned. So we on the street used to refer to it as scholars for dollars, but it caused me to be motivated to go through grad school, and because there was a pay increase that went with it, and still shows up in retirement. So,
wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah, so it kind of tracked me in two different directions.
So it's the timing of it all. And I think it's great that they help support not only, well, financially going through, your master's program, but also with pay. That's excellent. So when you started getting into the field and actually out there and seeing what was going on, did you start experiencing right away any type of things that you witnessed for as spiritual experiences?
Absolutely not at all.
Okay, so it was a while. It was down the road.
Well, it wasn't my personal life. I had, never knowing what I wanted to do, there was a period which I was contemplating going in the monastery. So I had some sense of contemplation. Great Thomas Merton devotee, and read almost all of his works. So, but that was separate. That was just a whole different part of me in my life. Policing is a very real event. It is here and now, and it goes for hours and hours of boring, mundane, and then all hell breaking loose. So, yeah, and that's the adjustments that you have to make. So, in terms of my own police experience, I was on patrol for about 6 or 8 years. In the rural Massachusetts, which I always refer to it as, it's more like the movie set of Deliverance. And I was a suburban Boston kid, and going out there to do police work was just beyond me. But
the cultural different,
very, very different. Because in Massachusetts, you either have a town or a city police department, or the state police. There's no county police, as happens most areas in the country. So it was very much the firsthand, full range of policing. Wow. So I did my tour there, and then I did 3 years on the Turnpike. And then, what leads to the experiences was myself and 3 other troopers founded an employee assistance program. We called it the Stress Unit. Officially, it was the Psychological Services Unit, but everyone saw it as the Stress Unit. So that's where I was introduced to things different than expected.
I got it. So with things that came out, I think maybe turning down the volume might help just a little bit. We're having a little bit of echo going on there. That might be good, Dr. Kelly. So now I'm turning mine down just to hear too. Okay. So is it when the stories came out with people? Is that what happened? And you started listening to this, whoa, this is going on in the field. Was it more that type of thing?
It wasn't overwhelming. What happened, we were full service, because I had finished my first graduate degree by that time, and we provided the services while we were in it. We didn't refer out. We did a lot of the counseling, traumatic incident counseling, and full range of family services and hospice kind of work, because we wanted to reach. It was a tough audience, and you can have all the 800 numbers you want on the wall of a police department, and they're not going to be checking it out real quick.
So I guess that makes me think. I guess it wasn't maybe accepted to talk about any type of mystical, paranormal, spiritual experiences, because I don't even know if it's still like that now within law enforcement. Quite honestly, I don't know if it's gotten better. I really don't know. It might be interesting to get a our people that will be at your the guests that will be at your event. Maybe there might be some law enforcement that can answer that.
Mhm.
But at the time, it probably was not something you would talk about. So I guess having these platforms did help. So can you share like if you can recall anything that stands out, like a story that you heard that you would consider
Sure. So
mystical or
what happened that triggered the study was
Mhm.
that in the process of counseling all these officers, and we also left ourselves available for local police officers and local firefighters, emergency medical services. Not too much of the customer caseload came from there, but we had some. And there was one case that showed up, and there was a couple of firefighters from one of the central Massachusetts cities, and they came in because they were having difficulty adjusting. They just didn't seem quite right, and their supervisor kicked them our way. Nobody volunteers in policing to go be counseled. It helps if you're shoved.
Okay.
So
It's recommended, right?
right, correct, yes, yeah. Wouldn't you like to go see them? So these two firefighters came at the recommendation of their chief because of other work we had done in that city, and they came in and they had experienced not a horribly unusual event. There was a painter who was painting a house up on a ladder scaffolding and above a driveway, and he fell off the scaffolding and injured himself. And by the time he got to the driveway, he was, for the most part, deceased. They arrived. I think they revived him for a short bit, put him in the ambulance. They rode the ambulance with him to the hospital. So it's not totally unusual, but it's a little above their average. So there's some logic to think of it as a traumatic experience and to use the protocols that we knew about in those days. Okay. So we did our usual, and I say we because there was another trooper that worked with me in that unit, and we proceeded to use all of the standard clinical protocols for post-traumatic stress. And we had a lot of experience with that. And it generally worked pretty well. And it kind of worked, but they just, And then finally one of them said, he kind of looked down at his shoes, and this is a quote that used to come up regularly when people would talk about these events. It's, "You're going to think I'm crazy, but..."
Okay. Okay. You've heard that one, Dr. Kaysen.
I've heard that many, many times. Yes.
Yeah. So his explanation was that there's something different about this one. I feel that the deceased victim, as if he's tugging on me, he won't let go. I can't understand it. It's just weird, and I don't like it, and it won't stop. And his partner, this was the icing on the cake, the partner kind of said, "Yeah, me too." So this is breaking ground clinically. What do you do? What do you do with that? It's not in the manual.
Right.
So
what did you do?
Well, we talked about it, and we said, well, if it seems to be a spiritual dilemma, because we weren't discounting it.
Right.
And they had some religious practice that they followed. So afterlife, the idea of life after death made sense to them, and souls and all of that. So well, it seems to be he's clearly dead, and this seems to be a spiritual problem. Yeah. So let's come up with a spiritual solution. Okay. So we worked on, within their faith tradition, what would you do to honor, help, respect, or try to deal with someone, a death of someone in your family or whatever. So I think in that case, they were able to, they went to the graveside, I believe. But they formed their plan of some sort of ritual, spiritual, religious ritual within the framework of what they were comfortable with. And they went and performed it, and then reported back, and they felt the lifting or the letting go of the tug from that deceased person.
That's beautiful.
Well, it was wonderful. And then a couple of years later, it happened again.
Oh,
And then
okay.
a couple of years after that, it happened again. Keeping in mind, I was in that unit for about 12 years, but it wasn't like happening a lot. And it just seemed like such an oddity the first time. And the second time was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. And we followed the same idea. It was spiritual, so we'll have a spiritual solution, and it seemed to work. So by the time I got to the fourth one, I was thinking it's more than coincidence.
Yeah.
But keep in
You're
mind,
getting good at this.
they were spaced apart by a number of years. So fast forward to my working on my doctoral dissertation, which is always a sore subject for anybody that's ever had to suffer through that. But I had a total change in direction on the dissertation. I had started off in coming up with devising a screening tool for post-traumatic stress disorder. And for a lot of reasons, it didn't work out. And I went to a qualitative dissertation, and for post-traumatic stress disorder, and I thought, is that the only 4 on the planet, or are there more of them?
Oh, good on your part. Yeah.
Using the resources of the unit that I had been in, cases that we had dealt with over the years. So I decided to collect data from the cases that we had, try to reach out to the 4 originals, and devised a questionnaire that a kindred spirit in the law enforcement academy was able to distribute to people at in-service training. And so between those 3 sources, we surveyed a whole bunch of people. We went through the records of the 2,500. We got 130 questionnaires back.
That's significant.
Found another 25 subjects from the 2,500 and pulled that data together. It was pretty basic and simple, but we asked them, have you ever felt a communication or a presence of someone, a deceased person at the time of their death? And we asked them a couple of other questions, how much service they'd had they been other death experiences, because we didn't want anybody reporting to skew it based on their first experience or whatever. So
wow. I mean, at the time, I know that was a while back, but that had to have been groundbreaking, because that today would be still groundbreaking, and that was some years ago. So, and to me, I'm an evidential psychic medium. Benefits of the after effects of NDEs, and I can tell you that is a common thing, and it's not always a bad thing. I just think sometimes people may be confused. It was so beautiful how you handled it, and you allowed each person to do that, so it was very nice.
I just wanted to interject something here, Tamara, is that Dr. Kelly is very, very humble. And so he's trying to minimize how groundbreaking this work is. It is still groundbreaking. Absolutely. It is still groundbreaking to this day. Yeah. And it is. And I think it is very, very needed by first responders who work in an environment where, like you mentioned, Dr. Kelly, not only it's just not part of the culture to go for counseling or to talk about these things, so that if they do have an experience, they're really alone. And I think your research is really validating, so that first responders will know, even if they don't feel comfortable to talk to someone, they hear your research results, that they know they are not alone. It's happening to others as well.
And they're not crazy.
And they're not crazy.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and that was the reason we developed that in-house counseling program was just for that reason. We knew we knew they had elevated levels of alcoholism and divorce, and they didn't have a really good access to mental health, and the stigma is too high. And of course, it's not just them; it's anybody that thinks they're special. Put an MD after somebody's name, and they're not going to be running off to a counselor in a hurry either.
Well, unless that was that. Now we have Spiritual Awakenings International, where it's a safe place that people can talk about these things.
That's right, including MDs,
including MDs,
and police officers.
And no. Go ahead. And
I was just going to say, I think we've gotten a really good teaser out of Dr. Kelly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, there's going to be more about this, and you're going to be sharing more stories like this and things that you came upon, I suppose, in your talk that you're going to have May 15th as well, correct?
Yes. Yes,
Wonderful.
I am.
Wonderful. Well, I can't wait to hear more of these. These are really exciting. I love these things. Actually, there's some TV shows that has similar content. I was like, ooh, this sounds like the stuff I like to watch. This is wonderful. So I can't wait to hear more. Thank you so much. And I want to tell everybody too, this is free to sign up so you can hear Dr. Kelly speak. And this will be, again, the title is Sensing Life and the Liminal. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then this is also first inaugural month of May. So this is something that SAI is going to be having to talk about with Forest Service and law enforcement. And these things that happen are spiritual. So thank you for doing this. Sign up at spiritualawakenings.org, and you can see where to sign up under events, and it is free. But you do need to register. So do register, and the link is below. And thank you, Dr. Kelly. Thank you, Dr. Kaysen, so much for your time today.
Thank you too, Tamara. Just to correct the website, www.spiritualawakeningsinternational.org.
I left out the word international. I'm so sorry. So spiritualawakeningsinternational.org. Okay. I cannot shorten it. Okay. Thank you guys so very much. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching.
Bye now.